Welcome to HR Unpacked, a podcast about HR workplace issues, where we analyse and then discuss the latest developments in HR and employment law that impact both employers and employees. Each episode, we unpack the latest legislation and regulations to provide practical guidance on how to tackle the HR issues that are affecting the world of work. Welcome, Kate.
Yeah, good afternoon, Jonathan. Good afternoon, Jed. Pleasure to be back for our series of podcasts. So, we're going to be looking today at value-based leadership. And we're really delighted to welcome Mr. Jed Mason, who's the CEO of the Morson Group, which is Britain's leading manpower services company. So the Morson Group specialises in supplying skilled white-collar staff, engineers, quantity surveyors, professional services, IT, to name but a few, to the aerospace, defence, nuclear, rail, oil, gas, and construction sectors, with an annual turnover of 900 million plus, which is clearly very impressive. So Morson's clients include BAE Systems, Airbus, Network Rail, Transport for London, and the British Nuclear Group. So welcome, Jed. Obviously, you've built up a fantastic business there with some really prestigious clients. So today's about really getting into your experiences and talking about the subject matter in hand, value-based leadership. So welcome.
Well, good morning. Yeah, thank you, Katie. Thank you, Jonathan. Nice to join you.
Thanks, Jed. So we're going to just contextualize what value-based leadership is before we go into your own kind of leadership style, Jed. So value-based leadership is where leaders draw on both their own core values and their negotiated and defined values of work. So it's their own kind of ethos which they drive into the culture of the organization, which we're going to find more about from Jed today. But according to Harvard Business School, the 5 key areas of value-based leadership are self-reflection, balance, humility, authenticity, and continuous improvement. And we're going to have a discussion today around those 5 areas and around Jed's cultural impact upon Morson's.
Cheers, Jonathan. So, as the CEO of Morson International, clearly we'd love to get into discussions around your own leadership style, Jed, and really how you've successfully grown a company that employs over 1,300 people, got more than 50 offices. So you're big, which is clearly great, particularly in the world we're in now. So it'd be fantastic to hear, first and foremost, I suppose, when you got into this business, what was your leadership style? How has that changed, evolved? What would you define it as now? A bit about you, really, Jed.
Yeah, crikey, it seems a while back since I started when I was a young sprog, as they say, coming into it was a family business. So in all fairness, I had a foundations there of a business, so very northwest base, and having grown it on that journey, you do get the grey matter to make sure you've learned a lot on the way through and make sure you don't make the same mistakes. But going back in, you asked the question on the early stages of leadership. I guess you're young and you're enthusiastic to want to make an impression. So you're self-confident. Probably patience is probably one of the things I probably suffered with a little bit. You want to get to A to B quite quickly, and if you are surrounding yourselves with inheriting into the business sort of directors who have been in the business for longer than I, then obviously it was clipping your wings to really not try and take on the world and make changes. And I guess that's the hardest thing when you're starting a business and you're young and you think you can take the world on. It's that self-confidence really that drives that. So I guess that was the early stages. I came from an era where styles were a bit more autocratic. Definitely a bit more of that style was around, and you do pick up on those traits. But as you go through your career and you grow in a business and you surround yourself, well, I've always wanted to surround myself with better people than I. Then you have to empower, you have to change your leadership styles, and that clearly that's important. Proven in most good leaders have that ability to move with the times, and you have to.
Yeah, and when did you join the business, Jed?
1986. So it's
Right.
a full shift, and I'm still serving my apprenticeship.
I'm going to tell you I was 5 in 1986, but I
So
was. I think, Jonathan, you were about that age as well, weren't you, in
I
1980?
was 10 in
Were you
1986.
10? Right, right.
Yeah,
I'm the
yeah.
spring chicken here. But, so I think one thing for me is being a leader myself in Peninsula. I've got a team of 280 here, a much smaller team than you've got. But being a business leader, I think the last 2.5, 3 years have led to a whole change in leadership style. Have you seen that, Jed? Have you seen a need to adapt the way you're approaching things, or not, as the case may be?
For sure, there's been a change. I don't think you can what worked yesterday will be fit for the future, and managing people in particular. The COVID brought one thing. It was the time that people had a little bit more on the social side to assess. They weren't necessarily diving around the country, traveling, and entertaining clients, etc., etc. So whilst there was, I believe, a lot more home time for family time, and I think that then allowed people to reflect on their own wants and wishes and desires for their future. So definitely had to change. As a business, we were full time. Flexible working is now very much on our agenda and working well for us. So that was a big adjustment. Most organisations, I think, have come back and offered some sort of hybrid of work from home. But I do feel there's a balance for sure, and it's creating that balance for particularly for the young generation coming through who are like sponges and want to learn and keen to see how the different approaches in the work environment occur. So yeah, there's different challenges then in terms of then home working. How do you trust people to work at the same productivity levels where they can, and therefore how do you ensure that those are kept? And I think trusting people to do that is if you have your KPIs and you have your ability to manage and address those issues, then you have to put trust in people. So yeah, there's different management styles, and as I say, I'm heading towards 60, so I now class myself as the older generation, whereas I never or didn't really feel that much. But certainly looking back, it's how you manage the youngsters in the business, which are great to have around. They
Check.
give you that enthusiasm, and listening to their ideas is really important. I think that's coaching becomes more important than sort of thinking you can do it your way, and listening and all the basics really are so important as you progress.
Check. Can I just ask about the when you joined the business, did you find that you were kind of targeted a little bit because you were the son of the owner? And then at what kind of stage did things start to change where people did start to think, okay, yes, he is ingrained to the company, he is the leader of the organization. How did you feel when you first started? And then when did it start to kind of change a little bit? Because that does happen when someone starts and then people start not to respect, but just kind of accept and then are familiar with that person
Yeah, I
then.
think you moved early days. It was that self awareness of what input and impact am I going to make, and therefore you need to earn your stripes. So yeah, there was that nervousness around that, and could I lace my father's boots? And certainly, I think grows with confidence when you just apply work ethics around wanting to succeed and make an impression. For me, what changed was when I was told there was a customer. It was ICI as it happened at the time. That we were no longer able to supply to them for whatever reason, and one of the directors sort of didn't encourage me to pursue it. Anyway, I did, and it ended up a managed vendor service contract for us 6 years later, and I really worked hard to make sure. So when you have a conversion, you feel like you've earned your stripes. You're then a peacock, and you can stand up against it. But yeah, I guess there's a lot of people who've been in family businesses, and they know it's always a bit harder, the focus and attention and the spotlights on you. But no, I knew what I wanted to do, and I wanted to take what I had, what my father had set up, and his co-directors had got a really good sounding board. So I was very lucky in that respect. It was just I just took it for another dimension with the team that I brought on board as well. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I work for a Northwest based entrepreneur as well, Peter Doan, who you know, Jed, and we've got a really defined, and what I love about this place is a really defined and great culture going on. I imagine yours is quite similar, but what is the culture like in your organisation? How do you feel working for Morson's Group? What's it like?
Yeah, well, similar to Peter, Peninsula, what a fantastic story that is. And, both being from Salford, and actually I knew Peter when I was a young lad, and he was starting in business and I was still studying. So for us both to be friends to this day is great. But yeah, our core values, funny enough, what COVID did allow us to do was to realign the core values. I don't think they can ever stand still. And as your business grows, it gets harder for that cultural thing. So it's been vitally important to me that the values that my father's installed are kept and carried, and that's his legacy. And that said, though, you have to move with the times. And, we've got a new HR. Katie Winstanley came on board, and what was really refreshing is I gave her free reign to sort of relook at everything we did from branding. It was a great opportunity to reflect, and she came up with the team and the employees decided to sort of collectively reshape those brand names and words. Old-fashioned words like integrity and all. Now it's the buzzwords, which I'm really enthused by, is curious, courageous, caring is probably the important one, and collaborative. So we've got 4 C's in our core values. The nice thing for me is that I've been very lucky in life, and a lot of our employees have along the journey, and therefore we like to sprinkle dust where we can, and it's about helping others along the journey and along the way, as many organisations do. And I think in our game, our recruitment industry is very proactive in that arena, which is great. The more we can do, so I think today, the modern day world of people coming for a job, they're as much interviewing the company than they are being interviewed themselves about what are your alignment to core values. So for me, it's always been important. We continue to do great stuff and sponsoring university people and students who can't afford it, and the various charities. When it was 50 years, we did 50 weeks of giving. So I think we play our part, and candidate attraction is really important to us. ESG and CSR formulate that. So, if you can demonstrate you're into that and looking after the world we live in, the planet, and your carbon footprint, and you do things. I think it's an attractive way of attracting staff, and you have to, because it's competitive out there, as you well know.
Yeah, I think that point, I'll hand over back to you in a moment, Jonathan, but that point about a candidate interviewing you as much as you're interviewing them, that's absolutely key. And I'll never forget getting a bit of a ticking off, probably from one of our recruitment managers. A candidate walked in, and I formed a judgment quite early on, and I cut the interview down, and they said to me, you don't ever do that again, because you are perpetuating our brand, you demonstrating what we're about as a business. They are interviewing you, they'll go on social, and it is really key that you're selling yourself as a business, aren't you, at interview
Absolutely, and
stage?
never judge book by the cover that was one of my lessons as well. I think you did, and that was the way you operate. You're human nature, and again, you see yourself changing how the first impressions walking through the door. I'll be honest, when someone walked through my door in the early stage of my career, full of tattoos, it set me back a little bit. Now I'd see far through that, because actually I've met so many people with magnificent tattoos that I quite admire the work of art. That it's what's inside, it's what comes out of the mouth. It's about how they interact and everything and that. So yes, you're right. Never judge a book by the cover.
Thanks, Kate. We've talked about the past, so let's look to the future then, Jed. What are your kind of future, or current and future enterprises at the moment, in terms of what you're trying to recruit people for and the skills that you're looking for as well?
Yeah, in the job world, it's a changing world, and they reckon by 2035 that 50% of the job titles have not been invented yet. So we are in a move of fast-paced moving, especially in the technology space. And we're seeing in engineering, a lot of engineering skills are moving into tech as well. So hence we've, as an organisation, been acquiring and developing organically into engineering and tech, and becoming a STEM supplier, supporting such organisations as you already mentioned. So that's important. Yeah, it's moving tech. The gaming world. There was a fascinating discussion I've had this morning about gaming and where that's going to, and the size of market. And yet, probably 10 years ago, it wasn't even, apart from playing in your house and home, privately, individually, it's extended beyond belief, really. So yeah, it's never ever changing. We're in good space. Government spend infrastructure into nuclear defence programmes, which, whilst not everyone's not into defence and what it stands for, it does represent and it allows countries to protect themselves, be a deterrent rather than an aggravator. So yes, it's a changing world. We got some headwinds, as we all know, but we think we were in a good space and a good spot to help customers finding. At the end of the day, the most important asset to any organisation is people. That's what we do. It's our full-time job, and we're supporting many good organisations to engineer the future.
And how are you future-proofing your own business, Jed?
Well, I've sort of addressed succession planning, so very much looking to the future of what is the next generation. And the good thing is I don't have to bang the table in terms of core values. It comes naturally. So a lot of people last year alone, it's a typical year. We had 24 10-year service awards. We had 18 20 years, and we had 3 30 years awards. That's quite typical. And what happens if you keep your staff? I know a lot of people aren't into long careers now, and they like to move around. But if you're of the size of an organisation, you can have as much job moves. Feels like you've left the business in one place, and they become the ambassadors. They really install into the new gen the core values that they live off. So it's about keeping that going as much as anything for me. When we've acquired companies, part of the DD is fundamental is the core values. How aligned are they to our business? Because to buy a business without similar core values, you're on a hiding to nothing on day one. They might be the most profitable business in the world, and you might have the best people who are very profitable to you, but if they're not aligned to your core values, it's you've got to. It's important to us and organisations to stick to them. For me,
in terms of your senior leadership team, then, Jed, because we want to provide practical advice through this podcast. How have you developed your senior leadership team? Then have you done a mixture of developing internal staff and headhunted, or have you just headhunted? What's your been approach to developing your senior leadership team?
I think our highest percentage of individuals who are directors within the organisation have come homegrown. We have obviously brought in as well to supplement, like a football team does, but it's been homegrown for us. And internally, there again, some of the advancements now in our training in-house, leadership courses we've run. I'm really pleased how that's progressing and important. And then linking coaching, buddying, and is the legacy I want to leave. Is certainly helping others, inspire, and basically to inspire others to perform and take on and become the next entrepreneurial spirit in the business. So it's vital you do that. And as I say, I've seen many organisations headhunt out at the top end and neglect sometimes the individuals internally who have given support can step up, and we've encouraged that. And I guess it's the way forward, really. So yes, got a fantastic team around me. And it's great to see their spirit and their enthusiasm and making decisions. Leave them to make decisions. I do sometimes come down heavy on them sometimes, but it's a bit of tough love as well as needed in the world. It's not all about pats on the back and everything's high-fiving you in every business. I've seen that a lot. We have to have a bit of tough love, and I've still got some of those old-fashioned values that I think they know the spirit it's meant. I think when you do criticise someone, and people do find it hard to, I always say, listen, it's a moment in time. Here's my feedback. This is how I'm disappointed, but move on. When Father and I shared an office for 14 years, if we had a disagreement, one of us would get up, go around the car park or make a coffee, come back, and the deal was, agreement was, whatever we were speaking about, disagreeing with was forgotten, buried, and move on. And I think it's important in business leadership that you're not frightened of pussyfooting around. You've got to be firm sometimes. You're the leader. And I have to say make those tough decisions and make them tough calls and make those tough words, because life isn't about being rosy all the time through your glasses. So there's a balance, isn't there? And I think I'd like to think when I'm long gone that they would say I was fair.
Yeah. Can I ask? Obviously, employee engagement and retention of your staff for service consistency is absolutely key. What do you and your team do to have fun? What social stuff do you do as a team?
Well, I think we're well known for that. It's work hard, play hard, and that's the ingredient, isn't it?
Yeah.
That especially in our industry. It's it does consume your time, and many of my team have made, which I'm so grateful, family sacrifices and all that. So you have to have fun. I always say, if you don't enjoy it, don't come to work with a smile. You're in the wrong job. So, I mean, one of the things we did as well through COVID, just before COVID, in our headquarters on our roof terrace, we have a bar. Not that we're alcoholics, by mate, but it's a social bar. Instead of people going out from the office, they've got the opportunity to celebrate whatever, birthdays, etc., target hitting in their own environment, their own bar, and directors are not allowed unless they're invited by an employee. So I've
Oh, right.
reversed the authoritarian way of working there. And on a Friday, I have to put my hand up and start waving to people on the terrace to see if I get the invite, and sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
I was going to say, have you ever not been invited, Jed? Or are you always on the list?
I don't think I have been not invited. I think they pulled my leg a few times saying, "No, not tonight, Jed." And then they see the look on my face, and then they feel sorry for me.
And can I ask one other question? I mean, look, all of us on here, I'm sure we've got demanding jobs, but yours must be on another scale than the jobs that Jonathan and I have got. How do you deal with that pressure and carry on being resilient and getting through the day and growing your business? What gets you up in the morning to do that every day? Because that must take some drive and passion, that, Jed.
It does. I think twofold. I think first and foremost, I don't want to be known. I never wanted to be known as the son who ruined his father's business. So that isn't a monetary thing. That's might be my motivator to make him proud and make my own family proud. So that's the driver. Second driver is I enjoy every minute I do. So coming into work, people say I'm whistling quite a lot, and used to be an old-fashioned view. If you were whistling, we were working hard enough. So I enjoy work, and you've got to have that. And then you balance your life, don't you? I've got a great supportive family and friends around me, and I've got a great team here with me who look after me and make my life easy. So my PAs as well, and what they do, my FD and COOs. I've got a remarkable team, and I'm so able to perform at the best because I feel that support's there. And yeah, it's difficult. We've got offices now in Australia and Canada, very similar to Peninsula and US.
Yeah, there's a lot of similarities as you talk,
so
Jed. It's quite.
I know how Peter goes on time zones. So yeah, no, it's about picking your right team, and my view is always pick better people than yourself at the job.
How important has Salford been to the business, Jed? Because obviously your family and yourself are from Salford, and the head office is in Salford. How important, and you're linked with charities in Salford, you linked with University of Salford, with the Maker Space as well. How important is it to retain that link to the city of Salford?
Absolutely vitally important to me for my roots. Yeah, it's proud to be a Salfordian, schooled here, went to college here. My father set up the office coming back from America when Martin Luther King got assassinated. My mum decided it was time to come back. We'd emigrated as young, so coming back to Salford is where Morson started in '69. Again, as sprinkler does help less fortunate, that's very much on the agenda to what we do in the local communities, not just in Salford, but where our branch network is. And yeah, it's got great. I mean, who'd have thought we'd have had BBC in Salford? When I was a kid knocking around the docks, and as Peter was swimming in the canal there. What we've got, it's a magnificent accolade to, and all fairness, John Whittaker's been a driving force behind this. And as Adamson was building the Manchester Canal from Liverpool to Manchester to put us on the map, I think John Whittaker's equally been one of them pioneering, visionary individuals who I respect and look up to for what he's achieved in the area and promoting Salford as well. So, yeah, no, it's a great place, great people. I mean, the work ethic and the humour about Salford, and the great people that have come there. I'm very friendly, as you know, with Harold Riley, who's an inspiration. The artist who's painted Mandela, kings, the Pope. Actually did a portrait for my father before he passed, so that was a nice thing he did. So yeah, no, Salford's there.
And you've got some brilliant stuff, Jonathan. I was just going to say, as you're talking about artwork, you've got some brilliant things behind you on your wall there, Jed. What are those type of things
It's bits of
representing?
my life, really. I've got the classic cars. What's that? That was Morson. I was notorious for getting Morson caps on Manchester United players, and that was the Premiership, the first Premiership. So stick through some. And then some awards when we floated on the stock market. Father and I, and Kevin and Paul. I guess my 50th birthday, and some of the horses that I have share. Very, very fortunate to be friends with Sir Alex Ferguson, and I learn a lot off him. Being good of that, in his leadership styles and how he used to open, walking down corridors. Alex would open doors for whoever's walking. That's little things like that are subtle. He lined up he made sure all his players knew the back office staff by name, and drilled it into, because they're as important in the cog as the player on the pitch. So, yeah, and then of course the great man himself, my father, who was a true inspiration to me. I can hear his voices sometimes. Yeah, so yeah, my outlook to rugby is passion, United's a passion, Sale Sharks, and of course my horses, where I've had some, and Alex and I and John Hales and Paul Bartman, we won the Irish Gold Cup. A lot of grade ones. Yeah, King George's was a spectacular one. 2 King Georges.
As a leader, Jed, how important was it to have that kind of, whether you call it respite or not, but that distraction away from your core business? Because leaders have mentioned that about having distractions to get away from the
Yeah, I
pressure
think
of
it's
business.
important, but not to have the distraction where it takes your time away from your core. So I've always been a firm believer in sticking to your knitting and making sure you're present, because the moment people think you're not here, or you're more interested in something else, I think it does have an effect on people around you. And it's not, the cat's away, mice play. It's more just about respect, so that you focus. So I've always focused. Morson's always, the BAE, the most important, the peripheral recharging of the battery, which leaders need to do. Otherwise, you have burnout, your temperament, you become negative. You need to recharge your battery always, and those have been great outlets for me and the people I've met along the way. And with Peter Owen as well at Peninsula, we have horses as well, and Ron Wood and Sir Alex. So it's been a great, that's been my having lost my father. I think surround yourself with your own little private club of people you can trust and bounce off. I think as a leader, you need that as well. Not, externally from your internal business. It's just healthy. So I've been fortunate to be helped. My chairman, Kevin Philbin's been fantastic with me over 30 years.
Well, look, for me, as I sit here and listen to what you're saying, I think you're kind of a living example, an embodiment, Jed, of value-based leadership, because you clearly rule and lead with a strong moral compass. And I think that really is to be respected, because you don't see that a great deal. I'm very lucky to work for Peter, who I think sitting here sounds so similar to the way you are and the way we operate as businesses. I think it sounds like Morson's Group would be a great company to work for, from sitting listening to everything you've said today. So thank you for that. It's really great to hear.
Well, thank you. Thanks for your time, and thanks for listening to me. And I've enjoyed every minute, and some fantastic businesses here in the Northwest. So good luck to everyone, all your listeners.
Thanks, Jed, and wish you all the best for
Thank
the
you.
future as well.